Okay, so we're coming up to 3. I was just looking at, I don't think you heard me before I had muted myself as usual. Steve, I was just commenting on what you were saying about this is the right way to hold a meeting. You know, so many of my clients have gone to sort of a virtual online training now as well, or conferencing. So you're absolutely right, for the social distancing, it certainly makes sense, doesn't it? What an interesting time. So, you know, hey, thanks for joining me. As I've just said before, you know, it's in such an unprecedented time. You know, never has health and wellness been more topical. So pretty good choice of topic. But, you know, look, rest assured, I am not here today to talk about any antivirus information, but it definitely takes no imagination to know how issues are affecting nearly everyone out there, including us trainers, for example. So let's get started. So, you know, look, many traditional corporate wellness programs, if you want to call them, I know some of you say well-being, some say wellness. I'm just going to use both right through the webinar. They tend to, you know, they once used to only recognise, say, the physical component of health. You know, okay, it's better than doing nothing, but, you know, this means that programs are missing out on significant opportunities in other aspects to positively impact their organisations. And, you know, when I say positively impact, I mean more than just employee morale, but actually organisational bottom line. It definitely impacts that. There's proof for it. So these days, health and wellbeing programs recognise and hopefully include other dimensions of employee wellness. They frequently now incorporate many aspects of that person's life and their work happiness. So, in fact, promoting wellness at work is, you know, well documented, and is pretty essential to boost employee productivity. It's shown, obviously, that happier and healthier employees regularly outperform those that are in organisations which do not promote health and wellness, especially during business times of trial. And, you know, one of those are right now. So, you know, considering on average adults spend at least 1/3 of their work life at work, and in fact, statistics even show that on average 22% of employees work at least 50 hours plus per week, then this makes the workplace a critical zone to feel both healthy and well. So this slide shows today about, I guess this is about wellness and how to use extended disc in the wellness area, or health and wellness, but it's beyond just concentrating on health alone. So on the screen there, you'll see a module. I'm going to explain that in a moment, but I just want to talk a little bit more about the programs. An ideal program literally needs to connect all of the components of employee wellness. Depending on which methodology is used, you may have from 4 to 10 dimensions of well-being in your program. You know, they tend to include physical, financial, emotional, social well-being, but many can also include occupational, intellectual, spiritual, and more. You can see on the slide that this one I've chosen has 8 interrelated dimensions. You don't have to use this many, but a lot of them do. Of course, there's a huge overlap. Each component or dimension, as I tend to call them, influences the others. So, for example, if an employee is out of kilter on, say, financial dimension, then it's most likely that they're also feeling emotional or likely quite physical aspects of is that going to be out of kilter as well. Basically, it's pretty obvious when one aspect is lacking, it's difficult for the employee to perform at their best. And the effect can be obvious, but even more dangerous, the effects can also be really hidden and not so obvious. They can be very subtle. And that's where extended disc is such a useful tool for picking up those subtleties of what's causing those effects. So take a look at these aspects of health and wellness. You'll agree, all might be less obvious, and you know, need a tool like extended disc to actually bring them to the surface so you can deal or discuss them. So look, there's so many things that we can choose, but we're going to focus on these ones today. So extended disc is a highly useful tool to use as part of health and wellness. Not only does it give us a starting point on where teams are at, but it can give us, I guess, how individuals are feeling about themselves as well. It shows us things like stress triggers, avoidance areas, motivators, communication issues that are in an individual. You know, wellness includes even how a person likes to be managed. That can cause stress if it's not done well. It also includes things like what their ideal work environment can be. So basically, it can give us really pertinent feedback from the ground up and wherever we need it to be. You know, many say to me, hey, Becky, I've got a growing issue with absenteeism, or maybe it's a team cohesion issue. You know, check out your health and wellness program and see, well, first of all, that you have one, but that it explores these kind of issues and doesn't put a plaster on them with only the physical health side of things. You know, I say all the time, and I'll say it again, the better the wellness of staff, the more the bottom line is positively affected. So Richard Branson said it this way: take care of your employees well, and they'll take care of your business well. So extended disc and Finks can highlight so many aspects that can be used in health and wellness programs. Look, I literally can't mention them all, but today, for the sake of a 30-minute webinar, we're going to have a look at a few aspects and drill down on a couple of them that they can highlight. So you can see them there on the screen. Things like motivators that, you know, hidden, that they're very subtle and they can reduce motivation in themselves. So identifying signs of stress and triggers and the causes and the release of stress. The other one is enhancing team cohesion. I mean, this is a big one. So I know we're talking about individuals, but the extended disc is amazing for looking at teams as well. I wanted to first of all start about talking about motivation. Again, there are so many descriptions of what motivation is, but it's in its simple form. It's the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way towards a desired goal. Motivation itself cannot be observed, of course, but we clearly see it. We see it every day by noting how people choose to behave. It's why we behave in certain ways at work or home. And if, by the way, if you do want to know a little bit more about the motivators, there is actually a separate webinar on the VIP pages at HRP. That is literally about the motivators of styles as well. So motivation, it's what drives us. It's what drives us to want to do that last sale, or what drives us to help someone beyond what they've asked for. But, you know, if we're operating consistently outside what motivates us, then this can often lead to things going sideways. So for example, a receptionist asked to cold call to help get leads because she appears to have the most spare time. This is for real. The sales manager, busy behind their computer because meeting customers is difficult and draining for them. It's human nature to want to operate in the area where our motivations are real. So look, I could give you examples of excellent customer service support people being thrust into direct selling, or of dominant drivers being promoted to management, where history's already shown team members were not lasting very long with a dominant type management culture. On a wider company scale, here's a few examples just from my own experience just recently about motivating and wellness inside a corporate company that I was with. I won't obviously say who they are, but I always found this very interesting, but this typical, an ecology division of a large company felt that they wanted to take on commercial opportunities to pay its way. The staff feel so passionate about ecology that they didn't want to sacrifice anything they were doing for the dollars to get it tighter and more consumable. So that added a personal tension as well as a constant operational priority issue. The corporate wellness itself took a huge dive. Absenteeism went up, of course. Next one, I was thinking about as I was writing this, you know, a group of educators each believed their own way of handling students worked the best. And they actually became quite anxious as they watched their peers doing things that they themselves didn't agree with. So the team became uncoordinated, disrespectful, non-supportive of each other. Almost any business is going to have some tension. We can't stop that tension being there. But that's when individual styles can really be tested and team cohesion can really crack. So DISC profiles are a great way to recognize behaviors that are not contributing to overall wellness and to help discover achievable solutions for it. And for us, the critical issue is DISC tools can do this at an early stage in the health and wellness program before some of these significant cracks actually become huge. So let's talk briefly about some specific motivators. We know that in profiling employees, we actually get the individual motivators on a page to read over and discuss with them. For the sake of keeping this webinar brief, though, I'll put some generic motivators up too for today. But if you want to go and have a look at some, obviously there's great material that is available for motivators as well. So we know that high Ds, for example, are motivated by things like competition, goals, changing routines, tangible, no-nonsense results. I styles, they're motivated by having fun, looking good, influencing, socializing, recognition, acceptance, and of course, not too much detail. The S styles, they're motivated by being part of a group or team, being realistic and practical, doing what is familiar to them, and being supportive to others. And of course, your high C styles are motivated by process-oriented goals, finishing tasks, following through, achieving high-quality results, knowing the details, and taking time to do it right. While not being motivated can lead to feelings of discontent, it's often for us what demotivates us as an individual that leads to stress and further health issues. Here's a very real situation that I came across as well the other day. So it's a little scenario, so bear with me. Obviously, this is a dream step up. It's a promotion. On paper, this person's new promotion, it looks fantastic. New salary, maybe other benefits like petrol cards or interesting challenges look like they're part of the package. Yet somehow this person that got this promotion just didn't gel with it. They felt dissatisfied, they felt demoralized, and they started thinking elsewhere might be better, the grass is greener. But they just couldn't put their finger on what were the causes of why they felt so demotivated and felt so flat in their new position. I have to say that particular person took a whole lot of mental health days since that promotion. Effectively, so did the people around him that were obviously impacted by how he was feeling. So here's another one. You've been hired to lead a team. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. You've been hired to lead a team, but no matter what you do, you just can't seem to raise the morale of the team. You know that you need to inspire them because consequences of employee demotivation don't bear thinking about. Your inspiration is not working. The talks you are doing, the inspiring talks that you're doing, are looked at like actually you're interrupting us. They don't quite look like they believe in what you're saying when all the rah-rah. There's lots of absenteeism again, and productivity has gone down. You feel exhausted as you're trying hard with all your energy going outwards to people as well, and you've fell behind on your own tasks. You then feel stressed and the team is still unmotivated and unproductive. That's a little summary of something that genuinely goes on. So here's the thing, what demotivates us doesn't always scream out loud to us in our leaders. Look how subtle demotivators can actually be. Have a look at some of these ones on screen. This person could maybe not feel comfortable with lots of details and instructions. Perhaps they aren't comfortable with making others accountable, which seems to be a big one out there. But they don't say anything as they don't want to upset you either, so they just don't do it. Maybe there's fear of criticism of their work, so they feel a bit paralyzed to get into a project as quick as you want them to. You give them feedback on not doing this and a bit of a kick up the rear to get going, but they seize up even more. Maybe they don't like taking the lead in public or sharing too much information, as maybe they feel they might lose control of the quality of a project that they feel so proud of usually. So they stop communicating and stop being part of the team to work on it by themselves. What I'm getting to here is that there's quite a few subtle demotivators that can affect people. And we don't actually always pick those up. But using tools like extended disc or Fink's tools in our wellness programs, you can pick these up a lot sooner and incorporate them in a good program that's a lot more holistic. I sometimes think the demotivators page we skip over a little bit too quick at times, but we all know that when we assess someone, you will actually get a page that's full of demotivate or reduce motivation areas, motivators, all that type of thing, strengths. And it's really good to really look at those and incorporate those as much as possible. So I'm going to take this a bit further. Let's take a brief look at some angles on this as well. So I just pulled this snippet out of an assessment, but there's a lot of information all through assessments. And for those of you who are familiar with it, there's lots of snippets of great information on Open Preview as well. Things like how an individual likes to be managed, for example. As you know, like to be managed with a lot of autonomy, with a quick check-in every now and then, maybe a lot of freedom to do projects on their own. Others love a good solid relationship where their manager might that they might prefer to talk on a more personal level, more informal. Maybe they prefer a little bit more accountability than micromanaging, and they like strong, well-defined guidelines to help them prioritize issues. And others, as you know, like to engage in one-on-one talks, talk through detail. They need deadlines. How should I do this? It's likely they will check in a few times during the day. Clever health and wellness programs prepare managers for these different relationships with their team members, and not just for the sake of the employee, but such insights like this can actually help the manager grow as well. I find this is interesting because I have so many managers that say, why does Susie come and ask me 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day about how to do things and why? But if he was better prepared, he would have understood that Susie's needs to check in because she's experiencing something new, or there's a fear of making final decisions because there could be mistakes wrong because Susie might be a C style. So an excellent wellness program has both big picture development strategy as well as an individual and subtle behavioural insights right the way through it. The other thing is too, a good program knows what stresses an employee as well. So let's just have a look over here. In being aware of the stress an employee is so helpful. Potentially you can try to avoid it and put processes in place, or if an employee is already feeling it, then profiling also shows us how to reduce it. Most of you will already know that there are stress pages in the standard assessment. In fact, they are actually in most reports that I see anyway. Look, I can't help but feel that these pages are often underused or underutilized, even though they generate so much good information about the person's well-being. So I do hope that you sort of stop and take heed of these pages. I know they are often at the back, but these are really about the wellness of the person. They indicate things like stress causes, their stress signs, and the release of stress. Now imagine incorporating or just having a discussion about that and incorporating it into a health and wellness program, customized for that person or customized overall for a bigger team, depending on how you're rolling it out. So many of my clients I consider good leaders make these pages absolutely critical to view. And almost invariably, stress issues are linked to other aspects of overall health programs as well, of course. The manager I worked with who didn't believe in the actual company product, the way that he kind of made his team feel undervalued and untrusting of that particular product. So that was always a very interesting one to uncover. The individuals, they felt sort of undervalued. The struggling rep not supported with good visual aids, for example, that can happen when good leaders oversee these, but don't look at these types of things. So look, I know that not every stress indicator can be avoided, but it sure helps when you can put in support once stress instigates, got tongue-tied here, once stress and instigators are identified. I don't know why I wrote that line to trip myself up for the day. So don't forget too that many of the assessments also have an overuse diamond. And you can see that on my slide there on the bottom right. So this really helps us to understand where this person's stress or what it might look like in effect as well. So look at the example and just have a look. This person seems to be in the I area, so they tend to be a high I. And one of their indicators are typically going to be that they come across quite unorganized or impulsive when they are under stress. You can have a look at the high Cs. You can see that they're overly critical takes distance to, gosh, oh, my eyes are going these days, takes distance to people, does not accept weakness. So it's interesting. This actual diamond is not in a huge amount of the reports, but can I just reiterate, all these diamonds plus about 8 others are available on Open Preview, and you can literally click people's names or teams or etc. and drag them in, and it will give you, it will populate in front of you on screen. So look, I've concentrated on how extended disc helps with the subtle and early insights into health and well-being programs. Or can I make it, obviously, I'll just say it a bit better. It's actually, these are the indicators that you can incorporate into health and wellness programs at an early stage. I also need to remind you what other reports can be useful as well. I say all of them are useful in every capacity, but here's a few others that I love and I've sort of picked out for us to have a look at today as well. And I like these because they give specific insight into relationships as well as good old raw feedback. So the first one, which I've, again, there's another webinar on work peer that was just done last month that you're welcome to listen to as well. But the work peer analysis, this basically does 2 people working together. Perhaps there may be additional insight needed to why they might be clashing when they do projects or activities together. So a paired comparison report like this adds significant detail to specific attitudes, behaviours, tasks, different tasks, etc., and understanding how to work together. The 360-degree reviews, especially the blind spot report, this Finks product is incredible at giving raw insight into the manager's own perspectives on a variety of areas. So it can be them alongside their peers, their subordinates, and managers' perspectives as well. So open questions or graded questions can be used to highlight issues of imbalance through traffic light systems, green, orange, red, depending on how much of a gap of perception there is. You know, of course, in a wellness program, as part of incorporating everything, this can actually lead to quite radically changed behaviours. It can look at new processes that need to be introduced to help reduce stress or promote wellness in a person and their mental state. Restructuring, that's a big one, obviously. I've had that happen a couple of times. But understanding each other every time will lead to a healthier discussion, better well-being of all the parties involved. So assessments used in this way can clearly highlight both motivating attitudes of an individual as well as areas to consider under stress. For some, this is the first opportunity they've ever had to discuss any blocks or any open or emotional matters to them, to be honest. You know, specific reports on management, leadership, customer service, sales. I mean, there's a almighty long list. The ability to take specific competencies from those, add personalized behavior types, and look at ratings. They generate considerable discussion and development planning of any individual program. I truly do say that what I'm talking about here really adds to the culture and the health of the organisation overall as well. Extended DISC reports clearly highlight both of these attitudes and individual areas under stress, and usually it's the blocks that it does tend to highlight. So you can see here an effective health and wellness program is more than just about individuals. It's about the organisation's energy, how it operates, how it interacts. In fact, we know it as the company culture. When the culture cracks and there's a problem, then any or all of the individual aspects can be investigated. Things like physical, financial, health, mental, all those types of things are overlapped and are affected. But what Extended DISC does as a tool is that it gives insight into those subtle issues at an early stage that can be incorporated into a wellness and health program. And those little cracks can be quite serious issues later on if they're not addressed. So a health and wellness program that basically completely investigates and addresses individuals' needs, things like relationships, stress issues, motivational issues, behavioural issues, etc. it highlights and exposes these in a manner that can be dealt with cleanly and openly. And that's the benefit of using tools like extended disc and Finks in a health and wellness program. So look, guys, I didn't want to go into huge amounts of detail, but I just want to say from my point of view, you know, wellness programs can be huge to implement, depending on how many facets you want to use. But I know for sure that any tool that can highlight subtle and issues early, like the Finks tools and extended disc tools are so needed in the wellness program. While some companies do focus just on physical, the better ones are the ones that link everything together. So for those of you out there doing wellness programs, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can be used. I didn't even sort of break the ice today, or the surface today, of what actually can be used further in a wellness. Don't forget things like surveys, company surveys, engagement surveys, all that type of thing can be really wonderful, especially starting a wellness program, just to gauge where people are as a whole. And then often doing one at the end as well gives you a bit of a progress report for how people are feeling. So I hope you enjoyed just a few insights, just a few little tools that you could use to incorporate into wellness. If you need to know some more information and how to use some of the tools, the ladies at HRP are pretty clued up on how and what to use, so give them a buzz. Hey, well, thank you very much for joining me, especially with all the stuff going on out there, and keep safe. And I will probably see you here, or see you logged on next month with our next webinar that we'll be doing. So thanks for joining me. Catch you later. Bye.